first let me say thank you for coming. We have some information to share that we hope you'll find useful. What we're going to do today is talk about a quick review of the 2018 budget timeline, talk about some changes that have happened in our vending relationships, and in the November 2017 town hall sessions, we said we would talk about two things in particular and follow up on them, and those included the Process Improvement Committee update and the projects that they've been working on, as well as the Parking and Transportation Study update. We know that people have had a number of questions around parking, and we hope that this will help to answer a number of those questions. And then lastly, we'll be talking about the Strategic Planning Grand Challenge. So Dr. Brown is here to talk about the outline of that Grand Challenge. So the budget timeline is the first thing that's on the agenda. And we've put together, Andy Hollis put together this lovely infographic that lays out the timeline for the different activities as we work into RCM. So you'll see that by February 26th, we've asked all the central units, the support units, to develop their requests. Those are due into Financial Affairs by March 7th. And then the committee, the RCM Budget Allocation Committee, will be looking at those on beginning their discussions on March 15th. Around April, we should have enough information to begin to set high-level budget assumptions regarding what healthcare costs are likely to be, regarding what merit pay could be potentially, so some high-level kinds of assumptions. Then by May 31st, we will begin to do assessments after we've had the discussion about the support units costs, and so those will get allocated out to the school and the colleges. And then there will be budget meetings with the schools and college in June and July to talk about their budgets. By June 15th, we should be able to revise the budget assumptions because we'll have a lot more information by that point in time. And then finally, by September, we'll be closing up the budget and approving the final budget. So we've tried to lay out and back into that approval all the different steps that have to occur before we can get there. And the steps that occur both for the departments and colleges as well as the support units. And now Alan.
Okay, good afternoon. Thanks for attending today, and we appreciate those that are watching online as well. We wanted to address several issues that have come up since our last town hall. The first of those is some people have noticed that on campus and in the health system, vending has changed. We did release a request for proposals last summer, early last summer, to solicit vendors for campus and health system vending machines. We have had both Coke and Pepsi on campus, but the result of this request for proposals and the review is they've now alternated. So Coca-Cola now has vending operations within the hospital, and Buffalo Rock Pepsi now has vending operations on campus. When we released the RFP for both this year, we released the RFP for campus through our athletic foundation, and the proceeds from that will support UAB athletics. For the health system, the proceeds of vending operations there support patient and family services in the hospital and the health system. It was a pretty big task to change and upgrade the machinery related to that. That relocation was completed at the end of last calendar year. On the campus side, we have over 90 machines, and about 2/3 of those now accept credit cards and Blazer Bucks. We did eliminate a few machines related to poor performance in the previous locations. I think we added a few locations though as well based on the newer facilities that we have online. We're also pilot testing what's called a micro mart concept in the administration building and in the 801 building. And the micro mart, this is an image of the micro mart that's in the administration building, I believe. And it just provides a convenience store type display of foods and beverages, and there also there's a refrigerator or freezer with things like sandwiches or Hot Pockets, things you can pop in a microwave. So we're sort of looking to put this sort of micro mart in buildings where we have a high concentration of faculty or administrative employees, particularly if those locations are pretty remote from restaurants and those sorts of things. So this went in the administration building, I think by the middle of January, and I've had lunch courtesy of this room a few days when it's been too rainy or too cold, or I just haven't had enough time to get out and go to a legitimate restaurant for lunch. So it's a great, convenient location, and again, all the proceeds from this are supporting the athletics department. And the other thing that we're excited about as part of our contract with Buffalo Rock, they are going to be producing UAB branded water. So these are out at the printer now, I believe, and we should be getting the first shipment of those. So look for those in your future meetings on campus. When we last met in November, we promised an overview of the work of the Process Improvement Committee. As a reminder, our Process Improvement Task Force was established about 3 years ago, and last year, when we realized the task force wasn't going to go away, we converted it to a standing committee. They've been doing nice work collecting information from all parts of campus on processes throughout administration that needed to be reviewed and ideally enhanced or done away with. So we're now pleased that that's a permanent committee that meets every other month to review the issues that are on our plate and to review new issues that have been submitted since the previous meeting. This is the membership of the Process Improvement Committee. It's been fairly stable for the 3 years that it's been in place. We have recently, thanks to the Faculty Senate, rotated the membership or the representation from the Faculty Senate on that committee, and we've added a couple of folks. So Mike Bertram was assigned to us through the research centers, our university-wide research centers program. They were missing in the early discussions on process improvement, so they've been added. But it's a good group. They really roll up their sleeves to dig into a lot of issues that have been brought forward. We do have a website for the committee. Currently, we have 39 open issues that have been submitted that we are in various stages of review or action, and 54 issues that have been submitted have been resolved to date. This is a snapshot of the homepage for the website, just to get you oriented. You can submit suggestions, and I'll show you. We also keep an active list of the things that have been submitted that are in progress. And we are maintaining the numbering convention in which they were submitted. So if item 56 rotates off, it doesn't get replaced with a new item 56. 56 moves to the completed list so that we keep a running log of the number of submissions and issues that have been addressed for the life of the committee. And then we keep a separate list of the completed projects. So once something gets resolved, it gets moved there so that, and we've already seen this occasionally, we get some repeat recommendation. So if we've already addressed something, we will deliver a message to the whoever's submitting what they're thinking is a new issue, to give them a status that it's either been addressed or it's on the work in progress list. Here's some of the key completed projects. As I mentioned, we've dispatched with 54 of them since the initiation of the committee 3 years ago. I'm not going to bother reading these. This will be available online, but this just gives you an example of the kinds of things that we're addressing. We're addressing things that can be dealt with in a meeting or two, or some of them even with an email saying, why don't we change that? Or things that might take multi-month or even a year or more of planning. So no issue too big or too small to bring before the committee. The committee itself is mainly the task manager. We turn the actual work of addressing these things over to the units, but the committee then maintains oversight of the work that's going on. And we think this just enhances a level or adds a new level of accountability to the work that's being conducted throughout administration. Here are a list of some projects that are nearing completion. These have had more of a longer lead. The one that's very active right now is the rollout of our purchasing card, or the P-card program. We've been pilot testing that across a lot of units since, I think, October or November. And we're seeing that now expand beyond the pilot phase. So if you're in a unit or a program or a school that hasn't taken advantage of this, we have folks in financial affairs that are anxious to talk to you because we'd love to get those cards out there. The early part of the pilot phase, they have been very well received and very well utilized, and they actually cut down on a lot of administrative work or duplicate work that's just done away with by using the purchasing card. We've had a big focus on addressing issues in human resources, and again, this is just a sampling of some of the things that are being done to help improve and speed up various processes in HR. We do continue to encourage individuals all across campus to take a look at this website and keep giving us ideas on issues that they think that this committee should pay attention to. Everybody that submits gets a response. You get your item goes on the list with a new number, and it does get attention at the very next PIC meeting. So I think we've got one coming up this week, I believe. Melissa, is that correct? March 7th, so in a couple of weeks. And I've already seen a handful of new recommendations since our last meeting. Typically, when I make a presentation and remind people to go online and submit, we get a bit of a wave. So we encourage that, so please go online and submit recommendations. I would encourage you, though, before you submit a recommendation, look at the active things that we're examining right now and the things that we've already completed, just to avoid duplication if possible. I wanted to talk for a minute about our parking and transportation study. The study was initiated, I think, in late 2015, ran for 2016, and completed about mid-year in 2017. Here's some of the things that we learned on that parking and transit study. On the transit side, perhaps not a big surprise, the biggest group of users for Blazer Express, our transit system, is the UAB medicine or the health system, particularly with the remote parking. Very early in the morning and all the shift changes, our buses are really running full and wide open during shift changes to get the folks, particularly working in the hospital, from parking to their place of work. You know, a big focus on needing better reliability and experience on the Blazer Express bus, and I know our team, Andre in particular, has been working with First Transit, who we use to operate that, to improve that experience. If you haven't ridden a Blazer Express bus, I would encourage you to do so. I think it runs very well. We've got a great app that tracks the buses as they're on their various routes. It's a pretty sophisticated system, and I think with the improvements that have been made over the past couple of years, the ridership experience is much improved. You can see some of the recommendations or some of the learnings that came from this study on the parking side as well, and we'll talk in a minute about some of this information and some of the data. I thought this was fascinating. This is a look at our physical parking resources on campus. So over 21,500 parking spaces on our roughly 100 city block campus. 13,000 of those are owned or controlled by UAB, but we also have 6,000 parking spaces within the footprint of the campus that are owned or controlled by other entities, such as the Birmingham Parking Authority. And very interestingly to me, we have 2,000 on-street parking spaces that are controlled by the city but are on our campus. And a lot of our employees and students end up using those on-street parking spaces as well as our visitors too. We're doing all this with a current staff of 21 FTEs, and that does not include the bus drivers who are contracted with us through outside company. When all of this data was analyzed and looked at the timing of when people were showing up on campus, what we learned through the study is we have an adequate volume of parking on campus now, but very uneven distribution of that, particularly on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which are peak days for class schedules. It also suggested that all things being equal, in 5 years we may need between 3,000 and 3,500 additional spaces. Some of that depends on the work that we're going to be doing around parking demand management, though. So I want to talk about some of the advisory committees around parking. We had a parking and transportation committee that was operational between 2015 and 2017, excuse me. This committee was really a very task-oriented group, and they were assembled with the explicit purpose of working with our administrative leaders in parking and with the outside consultant that was doing our parking and transportation study to help guide that study and the results and the reporting around that study. We actually wrapped up that committee in 2017. There was a little bit of confusion around that. We've decided to move forward into 2018 with the establishment of a new parking and transportation advisory committee that will become a standing committee at the institution. So you can see the charge that will be given to that committee, and invitations to that committee are going out this month. We've had good conversations with Faculty Senate leadership on representation for there. Of course, we'll include students, staff council, and other representation across campus. This is some of the heavy lifting that we're going to be asking that advisory committee to be working with us on, and these are sort of the go-forward strategy from the parking and transportation study that we've referenced already. So it did suggest that we needed a traffic and demand manager. We have hired an individual, and Chris, have they started already, or is that the 1st of March? 1st of March, we will have Brian Atkinson in place, and this is a new position in parking and transportation, and we're very anxious to see how that will help address and project some of our future parking needs in particular. And as I mentioned, we're going to be initiating the Parking Advisory Steering Committee. In fall of 18, we're going to be moving to a zone-based parking system for students. There will be parking permit rate schedule adjustments that will be phased in over probably a 3-year period beginning in fall of 2018. We're going to be building 2 new parking decks over the next 3 or 4 years, one on the west side of campus and one on the east side of campus. We've identified properties for that, particularly the one on the west side of campus already. And we are looking at potential parking restriction for freshman residents, and there'll be more discussion taking place over what that might look like. again, probably initiated in fall of 2018. And then we'll be working with the provost office for better class schedule coordination. As I say, currently we have adequate volume, but we have surges in demand, particularly on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we think some of that can be addressed with better coordination around scheduling. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Brown to talk about the Grand Challenge.
Thank you, Alan, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all here in the room and those folks out there on the Grand Challenge concept, which is, I think, a very exciting thing that's happening here at UAB. As part of the, oops, I'll hold it this way. As part of the strategic planning effort that we are in the middle of, it became obvious to us that we wanted to have a cross-cutting, the idea of a cross-cutting grand challenge that the university could address and attack gained some real traction. So we're pushing forward with the idea of a grand challenge for UAB. So just to let people know, a grand challenge is something that's very large. It's a big problem that when it's solved is going to have a big impact on a lot of people and society in general, whether that's localized or broadly spaced out. It's large in scope. It's very complex. These are not simple problems that can be addressed easily. And because of that, it's going to require a convergent kind of solution, that is, ideas that come from multiple disciplines, from multiple ways of thinking. Oops. So some grand challenge examples to get us thinking about that. From a global perspective, this would be to remove the threat of nuclear war from the world. Nationally, we could think about reducing obesity, the obesity problem in the United States. In our region, we could think about achieving health parity in the Black Belt of the Southeast. And in Birmingham, we could be, how does this work? Sorry. We could be the #1 public art city in America. Birmingham is the healthiest city in America. Birmingham is the most livable city in America. Hope you know what I'm doing here is saying we are not dictating from the administration building what the grand challenge will be. We're going to have an organic ground up process for selecting what we want to be and what we want to do. A couple more examples. And let me preface these next two slides. I'm going to talk about UCLA and Indiana University. But at the last time I spoke about this, the question was, how many of these are going on at universities? And I found out there's about 20 of these going on across the country. Georgia Tech, Carnegie Mellon, University of Colorado. I have a list of those that are very active. They're not, none of them are exactly the same. So this is not something that we are at in the total point of the spear, but this is something that's a brand new concept for universities to do. The benefit here is there's a growing community of practice about how to do grand challenges, which we can be a part of. So the UCLA Grand Challenge, they're a big university, so in fact they have two. This was established about 5 or 6 years ago, and they realized the concept of a grand challenge, that coming together they could have a bigger impact on a societal big problem. One of those is the Sustainable LA Grand Challenge, to make Los Angeles County 100% sustainable by 2050. That's a long way out, but they have milestones that they can meet throughout to show their progress. An important thing to point out here is that the last line there, that they want to make the region, in addition to solving LA's issues, this can become a model for the world. And that's what any grand challenge could be. The solutions that are discovered, the ways that things are done, can be transported and used elsewhere. There are other grand challenges. The Depression Grand Challenge, the mental health issues, particularly depression, may be the world's greatest health problem. And so they've got the wherewithal to be able to address depression medically, sociologically, in the community setting, and so forth. Indiana University, a slightly different approach. There are 7 campuses at Indiana University. The governor of Indiana established the state's strategic plan. In that plan was the recognition of the addictions crisis as a big problem for that state. The university, with its 7 campuses, realized they could be a big player, so they have accepted as their grand challenge the mandate in the governor's strategic plan to address the addictions crisis in Indiana. And solutions found there, you can imagine, are going to be useful in many other places, including in Alabama. And so this is just to say that Indiana University has a world-class faculty and the resources to do this, so expect to see big things from Indiana. So the UAB Grand Challenge characteristics, this unites UAB's expertise in research, in academics, in community service, in patient care, but also in a disciplinary way, whether it's biology and medicine and art. All of those could cross-cut and be a part of the Grand Challenge. It's not going to, and this is me speaking to the faculty and us at UAB, this is not intended to replace your scholarship. It's a way for you to hook your scholarship onto something larger if you wish. This is not a requirement that you be a part of the Grand Challenge, but of course everybody will want to be. The stakeholders are both inside UAB in a very big way and outside of UAB. The question came up to me right before the session, are we engaging with the community? Yes, we've already started that, but we'll want to do more of that. I'd like to have sessions where we have UAB folks and community folks and statewide stakeholders as well as talking about these challenges. This is something that we will be able to uniquely address. That is, it's a problem that we have that in Alabama, in Birmingham, or whatever, and that we have the existing strength or nascent strength that we can address this. It's not something we're going to create brand new. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? Yes, it would be, but that's not the grand challenge that we want to attack. And the commitment to success at all levels is key. And the commitment is not just the funding and we do this and get it set up, but a consistent attention being paid to the grand challenge. The funding, of course, the resources, and the process of and the reporting out, and there has to be a major commitment. And there is, I can tell you from the administration's perspective, we're very committed to this. So there will be substantial seed support to get this rolling. We're going to offer at least 3 to 5 years of UAB support as a seed funding that will lead to additional, much larger funding from federal sources, from philanthropic sources, from business and industry, maybe even from the state legislature. So the internal support is going to be to get this rolling. The 3 to 5 years is the amount that we're thinking, or the length of time we're thinking to get this started. And then we can go on and select maybe another grand challenge. So this isn't a lifetime, UAB will support this for a lifetime, but rather 3 to 5 years to get it up and rolling and standing on its own 2 legs. One example of what I mean by seed support that I want to share is Cornell Tech. This is a major research innovation university that was established, that is being established in New York City. That picture there is Roosevelt Island in the East River in New York. Governor Bloomberg offered a $100 million award to in a request for proposals to universities to set up this high-tech innovation university in New York. He offered the money and he offered the real estate. So that's a big offer. A lot of universities pursued this, Stanford and MIT and others. Cornell did as well, and they linked up with Technion University. That's why Technion University out of Israel. And here's the seed part. That group got a $1 million gift from a donor, the Cornell Tech group, to free up time to allow them to come together to write the proposal, to form the team to win, which they did. They won. So that $1 million resulted in $100 million, and a semi-valuable piece of real estate in the East River in New York City, and additionally almost another $500 million from other sources. So that's the kind of ideas about seed. And we're not focused only, of course, on the dollars here and the value, but rather the impact. But this is one way to measure and to describe what we mean by seed support. The process will be, right now we're in the communications phase. Hopefully I'm communicating to everyone. And we'll continue to communicate to a variety of groups in a variety of ways. We'll probably sometime in March have an announcement of opportunity where we've semi-formalized the process or formalized the process. The due dates, and I'm going to speak very briefly about these next 4 bullets, we'll have concept papers from all comers to get the idea of what are the thought processes out there. And believe me, I've already heard a bunch of thoughts that are out there, and they are very excited. We'll have a workshop, or I can imagine a series of workshops that help us understand how to think about what a grand challenge is, how to think about forming these kind of teams, how to think outside the box in terms of partnership development. Then we'll ask for planning grants. These are smaller but not insignificant support from central administration for these teams to develop their full proposals, which will be due sometime in spring of 2019, which will allow us to select and talk about our grand challenges in summer of 2019, which is our 50th birthday. The concept paper, very brief, it's 2 pages. It's very short, very to the point. This is the problem. This is the potential solution. Here are some potential partners. Doesn't have to have budget numbers. It really is the concept paper. We'll use these in two ways. One, to group together. I imagine there will be concept papers of similar types in the area of health disparities or in the area of educational attainment and others. And we'll get those people knowing each other, because it would be better for them to group together to write a larger planning, condensed or a connected planning grant and full proposal later. We'll also use these to inform the workshops that we're going to have. They will be fodder for getting conversations going and interactions happening. The next is the workshop, which will be, this is very much up in the air. I'm going to need some help in figuring out how to facilitate such a freewheeling and open-ended workshop where people are forming teams and getting ideas out there, but those will happen over the summer. The planning grant will be short, but there will be more details, about 5 pages, where we're getting a little more specific. And the planning grant is a grant that is written to help you to carve out a little bit of time, about 6 months, where you can, at the end, you've developed a really excellent full proposal. These are planning grants to write the full proposal. And then finally the full proposal, I said 15 pages, that's a kind of a regular NIH or NSF level of proposal, the details of which we can get out there. But these will be much more, the budget will be complete, the letters of support, the plan of work, and the milestones that are going to be met. So these are the ideas for the grand challenge, and that's all the slides I have, and I guess we're taking questions as a group.
We do ask if you have a question. If you don't mind writing it down, it helps us with the live stream presentation if you will write it down for us, because this is the only microphone that actually goes through to the live stream. We'll wait just a moment. And when you have one, just hold it up and we'll come get it.
I have a question on parking.
That mic's fine.
You said we needed 3,000 to 3,500 new spaces potentially. How would the new parking depths, do they add up to that or close? Because they're planned for 3 to 5 years.
Andre, you want to come up and address that one?
Good question. While the studies show that we are short, we'll possibly be short 3,000 to 3,500 spaces, It is not our intent to build that many. With our new transportation demand management program, we feel that we can significantly reduce that number of single occupancy vehicles coming to our campus on a daily basis, which directly decreases the number of parking spaces we will need to build over the next 5 years. However, we are not ignoring the fact that we do need some additional new parking spaces, which we have a plan to address, but we're hoping to get that number decreased significantly, at minimum by at least 1,000 spaces, more into the 2,000 to 2,500 space range.
Right, I believe this is a question for Dr. Brown. How do you expect to get the community partners engaged in the process?
Well, there could be events like this. I think I'm a little more equipped to interact within our university, so any way we can. The one example so far that I had at the Innovation Depot, we brought in several business leaders in the kind of in the high-tech world and talked to them about it. So any opportunities that are out there, I'll go out and speak to people in the same way. So whoever asks that question, if you've got ideas, I'll take them.
I do. And I'll give it to you.
That'd be great.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I declare this meeting closed. Thank you, everyone.